Hey, what's up, guys? This is going to be a little bit of a different video that you guys are used to. I'm going to talk about the current prospects of Ben Simmons with the Sixers and see what I think could potentially happen tonight, because tonight is the NBA draft, and this is 5:37 in terms of me recording this. I will definitely try to get it out pretty quickly before the draft starts. Hopefully there hasn't been any trades, and in the meanwhile I'm putting all my notifications off to the side so I don't see anything. But if you like this content I'm going to be putting out here, consider giving a like on the video and maybe giving a subscription. Definitely appreciate it. Again, something new on the channel, but if you guys like it, I will continue doing this because I do love the Sixers, and I like my let me get the Ben Simmons shirt. But yeah, no, I think he's going to be traded, or a pretty likely scenario that he is going to be traded today. He's just generally been pretty ousted by the Philly community, which is kind of crazy, especially with like how much he's given to the team, but he didn't really give much in the recent playoffs. A couple years ago, they lost to the Heat. Or no, to the Raptors, which was pretty unfortunate. And Simmons did pretty well in that series. But outside of that, it's been kind of a poor playoff showing with Simmons. He was also hurt 2 years ago. So there's a little bit of slack there. But this last playoffs was pretty tough. Even when they won against the Wizards, he wasn't up to stuff. And really no sign of improvement on the offensive end. It's pretty tough. And Joel Embiid being your primary offensive creator is pretty tough in the NBA. There really hasn't been a championship in a pretty long time where your center has actually like been the offensive anchor to your championship team. Even like Shaq had his Kobe. I guess maybe like Tim Duncan would be like the biggest comparison there, or like Dirk. But Dirk was even a special talent because he could shoot the three, and Ben Simmons is obviously known for not shooting the three. So yeah, Ben Simmons also has this $33 million contract over 4 years. Which is, I think it even goes up more every year. So it seems like a tough situation there. And the league knows that the Sixers want to trade Simmons. And he had a pretty poor playoff performance. So what's his value now? Do teams actually really want to trade for Ben Simmons? It seems like a tough proposition right there. But he is a multiple time All-Star. He's been a multiple defensive first team player. So he's definitely up there, and he's definitely proven that he is capable of competing at the highest level. Just the playoffs have been a little bit of a different story, but it also depends on the perspective of the team. Ben is a star player, and some teams might not have the opportunity to get a star player and acquire one that's just readily available due to maybe like what their market is or the quality of the free agent pool this offseason. So if you look at like the point guards that are available, the best ones would be Lowry, Conley, Lonzo Ball, Dennis Schroeder. Maybe if the Lakers don't sign him. Lowry seems tough, especially with how much money he's demanding. Conley, I imagine he's probably going to stay with Utah, but it could be up in the air there. Lonzo's restricted, so it's hard to gauge how much he's going to get. And Schroeder, I don't know. He also didn't have the greatest playoffs, so that seems like a tough proposition for point guards if your team's looking for one. And power forwards, you got really John Collins, and that's it. And he's a restricted free agent. I guess the Hawks maybe don't sign him, but I would be like 80% sure that the Hawks are going to match whatever offers or John Collins are going to get. So, yeah, it's like pretty meek market out there. And Simmons is only 25 years old, so durable player as well. So in like a rebuilding or contending team, Simmons could fit. So what teams, like in general, could be interested in a player like this? I have like a list of teams that might be able to go for him. So I have the Knicks, Raptors, Bulls, Cleveland, Pistons, maybe. I'm not sure about the Pistons. I guess you have Jeremy Grant, but I don't think you really care about Jeremy Grant in a sense either. The Pacers, the Hornets. Maybe the Hornets. That's kind of like a weird situation too with Miles Bridges. There's like a little bit of a gap there, and then you have Ball, obviously. So I don't know if you'd fit in the Hornets, but I think the Hornets would definitely appreciate him. Miami would be a cool spot. Orlando, Denver. I really like the prospect of Simmons on Denver with Jokic, but their guard play is just tough outside of Harris. He's still in the playoffs, so I don't really know if Denver could really trade for him. Minnesota, Warriors, Kings, Rockets, San Antonio. I think all those teams would definitely appreciate a Ben Simmons on their team. But some of those teams really don't have the pieces to trade for Sims. I said before, Denver I don't think really makes sense unless they wanted to trade a bunch of filler and Michael Porter Jr., but I don't know if the Sixers would go for such an unproven talent, though he does look like he's a beast. And obviously some of those teams might not have the desire to trade for Simmons, but I think they could all use his skill set. But what do the Sixers want in return for Simmons? So obviously perimeter creation, and you have to be at least an average three-point shooter. They really have not had a ball handler that can make their own shot in ages. Maybe Lou Williams, and that's a pretty long time ago. I guess Drew Holiday to an extent, but he was young when he was on the team. Iguodala was a little bit of a... I mean, Simmons is also an atypical point guard, and Iguodala didn't really play the point when he was on the team, but yeah, it's been a long time. And the best creator that can make their own shot on the team right now is probably Maxey, who is a rookie and inconsistent in the playoffs. He had some really good games, but it's hard to expect a whole lot out of him, and I think the Sixers are going to expect a lot of him this season if he's going to be on the team. I imagine there's probably a better chance he's not on the team than he is on the team. I think he's going to be packaged as some part of a trade for Simmons, but it would be neat if they had him on the team. But he's also below average three-point shooter, so it's kind of tough in that regard. But they also need a star talent like on the perimeter as his primary creator. Having Simmons or Embiid as your primary offensive option is pretty tough. Like, as I said before, as a center. Like, Jokic can do it too, but Jokic had a pretty tough time in the playoffs. Granted, his team was hurt, but again, it's kind of tough where Embiid would have to be the main offensive focal point and the main defensive focal point. So if Embiid can maybe those 29 points a game, maybe lower it to like 22, 23 points a game, take a little bit less possessions, maybe a little bit of less tear in the body, and have more of a defensive impact, that would just be a difficult team to stop if they're able to get a creator that could shoot the three over Ben Simmons' spot. And even though Simmons has among the best perimeter defenders in the NBA, you have Embiid, who's maybe like a top 3, top 4 inside defender. So I think you would be able to patch that up, and I think interior defense is more important than perimeter defense. As we've seen in the playoffs, I don't think people would say like Trae Young or Chris Paul or Devin Booker are above average guards in defense. Though Drew Holiday definitely was, and he did great in his past playoffs. So what teams have like a perimeter player that would make sense for the Sixers? So I have a list here. So Brooklyn obviously has Harden, which would never happen. Kyrie might be a little realistic, but I would doubt a type of trade that happen. The Raptors have Lowry and Van Fleet, but Lowry would have to be a sign and trade. The Bulls have Levine. Cleveland has Garland, which would be okay. I don't think Sexton is going to be a number 1 option, but he would kind of fit that role. Pacers have Brogdon, but he's hurt a lot. Bucks, no, it's not going to happen. Trae Young, not going to happen. Miami has Butler, but he's not a great three-point shooter, so that wouldn't really work. The Wizards have Westbrook, again, not a great three-point shooter. I don't think that makes sense. And Beal, that would make sense. D'Angelo Russell and the Wolves, that he's not a great shooter. He's just not good at all. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander from Oklahoma would fit. Portland has there too, obviously. The Jazz and Mitchell, that's not going to happen. Warriors, not going to happen. At least not trading Clay or Steph. Suns, not going to happen. They're not going to trade Paul. I don't think that makes sense. The Kings, they have Heald and De'Aaron Fox. Heald, I don't know if he's the creator that the Sixers need, but would be definitely the shooter. The Mavs, they're not trading Luka. John Morant's not going to get traded. DeRozan had to be a sign and trade as well, but I'm not sure about DeRozan anyway. So yeah, most of those prospects seem pretty unlikely, or just not enough value for the Sixers to be that interested. But again, they do want to trade Simmons, so I have a couple proposals here. So obviously the first proposal is the Lillard proposal. That's like the best case scenario for the Sixers. That would have to be their number 1 target. So maybe I have the Sixers bias in general, but I'm trying to think of trades that are going to be the most fair. So this is Damian Lillard and 2 pick swaps for the Sixers, and the Blazers would get Ben Simmons, Matisse Thybulle, Tyrese Maxey, 2021 first, 2023 first, and 2024 and 2026 pick swaps. Sixers can't trade 2025 because they don't have it, and they can't trade their 2026 because they need the first-round picks 2 years in a row. But 2026 is an interesting first-round pick because that's when both Lillard and Simmons are going to be free agents. It's going to be the year after that. So if the Sixers really fall off there, then the Blazers have a pretty nice first-round pick there. This would keep the Blazers probably still in contention, and would definitely improve their defense. And then you'd have to pair that with CJ McCollum being like the main offensive focal point. But Matisse and Simmons can definitely guard a lot of the wings that they have out in the West, and Maxi's a pretty nice backup point guard option. Definitely a different change of pace from Simmons. But Damian Lillard, obviously best fit for the Sixers. Just that shot creator, can make shots from anywhere, really spaces the floor for Embiid and for Harris. That would just be a championship contender instantly. Not that the Sixers already weren't anyway, but they'd have to be like at least a top 3 favorite to win it all if they were able to do this trade. Seems kind of tough. I don't know if it's kind of tough. We don't know if the Lillard is really looking to get a trade or not. But if he is, I think this is definitely an option that the Blazers would consider. So, and obviously the Sixers would definitely do this because they're getting the best player in the deal. Next would be another trade with Portland. I don't think McCollum is as an attractive of an option. He can be a handler, but I think Lillard definitely a more consistent shooter than CJ is. So I think this is a pretty fair trade at Simmons and a first-round pick for CJ. Just imagine pairing Lillard and Simmons. That seems like a really, really nice combination there. And having Jurčić as well, that seems really nice. And Simmons is going to be able to guard whoever you want out west. CJ will give you the shot creation that you need. You probably want a little bit better of a point guard or more like a distributor. But I think the Sixers might be able to find it in free agency. But having CJ plus Tobias out in the wings seems like a really, really nice offensive combination there. I don't know if the Sixers would even have to give up a first. Simmons for CJ seems like it makes a lot of sense for both sides. But I think the Sixers being a little bit more... It's even tough to say because the Blazers are also pretty desperate for like change. But if you imagine a Simmons plus Lillard, that just seems like a crazy combination there. The offense-defense seems like a pretty nice combination, more than CJ, because they really need defense out in Portland. So the next team I was looking at is the Wizards. Trading for Beal. That's like the other main target that the Sixers would have to look into, in addition to Lillard. The problem with the Wizards is Westbrook's still on the team, and there is rumors of him getting traded either to the Lakers or to the Clippers. But I think the Clippers make more sense to be able to trade for Westbrook, and the Wizards still be pretty satisfied with a trade. So this is a pretty big one here. But the Sixers get Beal, the Clippers get Westbrook, who they both want. The Wizards, this would basically have to be like a nuke started over. Now, I don't know if the Wizards necessarily want to do that yet, but like this combination has been working for the longest time. Obviously, because they traded Wall for Westbrook, and that was kind of a disaster this season. So the Wizards would get Beverly. This is from the Sixers. They would get Simmons, a first-round pick in 2021 and a first-round pick in 2023, and they'd probably also have to trade either Thibault or Maxey in the deal. Probably not both. You'd probably have to trade one or the other. Would really depend what the Wizards prefer. I don't think the Sixers have to get both to get Beal. I think they can trade a little bit less to get Beal. Also because the Wizards are getting rid of Westbrook, which is definitely a negative contract there. The Wizards would be picking up Beverly, Zubac, Kennard, Terrence Mann, who I love Terrence Mann. A first-round pick and 2 second-round picks. And again, this is also including either Maxey or Thibault, which is like a first-round talent as well. Kennard is kind of an iffy contract, but obviously Westbrook's a lot worse. This also gives flexibility for the Wizards to actually have a little bit of room in free agency this year and have a lot more room in free agency next year because Beverly will be off the books. And you might be able to trade that contract anyway. Zubac might be a little weird with Simmons and Hachimura, but I believe... Who's the Wizards? The Wizards center. Ian Mahimi is gonna be a free agent as well as Robin Lopez. Thomas Bryant is pretty solid. but I think you'd probably want him as a backup. I think you definitely would prefer Zubac on the team. So I don't know if the Wizards do this trade. It really depends how much they want to like nuke it and start it over, but they could get a lot of first round picks and high quality picks. Though I guess they'd be pretty high from the Sixers and Clippers. It kind of seems unlikely. It's a tough deal, but you're also getting rid of Westbrook, which is definitely a negative contract. So the next proposal I have here is the Raptors. So these are definitely teams that the Sixers probably wouldn't be as interested in. Obviously, Beal and Lillard are like the top two and probably not close. But you have to, again, if they're trading Simmons, you have to find takers for the deal. So this is a weird trade too. The Raptors would get Simmons and the Sixers would get Lowry, Anunoby, and a first-round pick, which seems like a lot giving up from the Raptors. But Lowry would be gone. He's a free agent, so this would have to be a sign and trade. And this is assuming $27 million a year. This barely fits under the cap based on how much salary is going out from the Raptors compared to what they're taking in from the Sixers and vice versa. I don't know if Lowry's getting $27 million a year, but it's a lot. And it's also for 3 years, which is tough for the Sixers because it has to be at least a 3-year deal based on the sign and trade qualifications. It can't be less than 3 years. It could be some team options in there, but that seems like a pretty tough contract in a couple of years. But you would be getting Anunoby and a pretty high first-round pick. And Raptors would be getting someone that's obviously the best player in this deal. Him plus Siakam, that just seems like a really, really cool combination there. And you still have Van Fleet if you're Raptors. But I don't think adding Siakam over the first-round pick made sense. I don't think adding Van Fleet made sense. It really depends if the Raptors just want to blow it up. I suppose you could add maybe one of those two over... and obviously their contracts wouldn't pick either. So I think Anunoby probably is the worst player out of the three, and I think makes the most sense for the Sixers. So definitely an interesting proposal there, but definitely a weird trade. But Lowry's contract is kind of neutral, but obviously he's going to fit really well on the team. Two other weird picks that maybe don't favor the Sixers as well. The Sixers be trading to the Pacers for TJ Warren, Malcolm Brogdon, Goga, and their first-round pick. I think an interesting proposal here. Now, the Pacers would have Sabonis and Miles Turner. So maybe you try to trade one of those two for a guard. Maybe this isn't that realistic, but Warren plus Brogdon would be a really cool combination to have on the Sixers. And Goga would be a nice stretch 5 option to have just to change the pace on the court. When the beat is not there, just Dwight Howard didn't work in the playoffs. He was pretty unviable. So having an alternate option that just gives the defense a different look is definitely great. Malcolm Brogdon is hurt pretty often, so I don't know if the Sixers would make this trade because Simmons is very reliable. And TJ Warren's a solid player, but he's going to be a free agent after this year. But this could maybe replace the spot of Danny Green in the lineup. And a first-round pick's definitely not bad. And the Sixers maybe could pack it up to maybe get to like pick 10 or so if they really wanted somebody. And the last proposal I have here is Ben Simmons to the Spurs for DeJounte Murray, Derek White, and their first-round pick. I don't think I haven't seen a proposal like this at all. I don't know if the Sixers do it. I don't know if DeJounte Murray and Derek White are like good enough, but like both of them, especially on their contracts, I think are pretty nice values, and getting the first-round pick seems pretty enticing. Definitely not the star quality that Simmons is, but for the Spurs, I think Simmons is like seems like a Spurs type player. He has a little bit of like the persona of like an all-star, but it's pretty quiet, kind of like a Tim Duncan. Definitely not comparing Simmons to Duncan, but I think he could fit in the mold of the Spurs. But yeah, let me know what you think of some of these trades. Some of them are pretty crazy, but hopefully I can get this video out, and hopefully none of these trades have happened yet. It would be cool if I got some of these proposals right. But yeah, again, consider liking the video if you like this content. Maybe I'll do a video for Harris, but I think that could be a video that's more later on in the offseason. I don't think trading Tobias Harris is going to happen tonight. But yeah, until next time, later guys.